So my name is Igor Parac, and I will talk a bit about Agile vendor management. I will just give you a quick overview why this topic. While I'm giving you overview, I will switch to this because I also want to thank to our sponsor, which made this for me really nice and cool event possible. So through my, let's say, relatively short career, I was starting like going through all the roles or titles that can be from junior programmer, then senior programmer, then a bit project management, a bit of product owner, and so on. And all of the projects that I have been working on were directly connected in an outsourcing world. Being a guy who pays for the software, or being a guy who is paid to make a software. And all of these projects contain always the same underlying problems. I mean, problems are always communication, but in even a larger company, when you have a communication issues, adding a vendor and client makes the things more difficult and add a really big layer of complexity there. So I just want to address that topic and point out some of the things that I have really found useful in dealing of this kind of project. In my latest project, I was the one who has started to search and at the end get the vendor who will provide for us software services, meaning that I was acting a bit like a project manager, a bit more product owner, and so on. And I was start doing, let's say, extensive research, reading a couple of books and talking about the outsourcing, and really the question came out, why do we need outsourcing at all? Why do we do that? Why company need someone to do something from them? Answer should be, and most of the time it is really simple in the heads of our people, is cheap workforce. Okay, we'll pay some people to do the cheap work for us and we will get what we want. But of course, in reality, that's not the case. There are a couple of things that I have found really interesting why people want to do the outsourcing, and sometimes it's really to acquire new skills. Because if I really have a good business case and if I know what I'm doing, I'm going to focus on that, and I will try to outsource other things that can help me going through that direction. Also, I'm not talking only about the software. There can be really interesting things there. For example, currently my project is involved in highly secure development, so I need external company to help me deal with the security, because I do not have time to focus on the security, because I have so good business case and I want to add value to my customers, and I will find a partner that will help me in doing that. Then again, pretty much business is really hectic these days. Things are going really fast, and that's the reason why companies are pretty much there to start partnership, not just to go and buy something. The idea is to get the people around the one idea, around one goal, one vision, and then go strictly direct to it. And then again, company should pretty much focus on what the company do best on its own value and the products, and try to do to outsource what is really needed in helping that, while maintaining the focus on the really main things. I've been reading a couple of books on this outsourcing, and this really kind of struck me here, because books that I have been reading are not directly connected with the software development. And this is kind of really interesting, because we can outsource a bunch of things: call centers, HR services. One of the most interesting, and for me as a technical guy, new possibility is outsourcing help from the doctors, where you just send them a scans of patients, and they write down the findings and then get your scans back, because that really helps you doing stuff on your own work. And there were really nice comparison, which I really like here, and they say there is something like traditional outsourcing. It goes merely by I'm buying something from someone and I know what I'm buying, and this is pretty much it. There is not much, let's say, communication and going around some business case, adding values and so on. And it was pretty much based on that. Here is especially a couple of, let's say, anti-agile words like this, operational, cutting costs that we have already been talking about, controls, and the main thing like unchanged business process. So I was outsourcing that, something that's really simple that I'm going to buy and get the result back. And there is a new trend occurring that is something like transformational outsourcing that is quite around here. And I mean, we're all here because of the business, and the business is the focus, then creating a value, a bit managing uncertainty. This is what I really like, aligning with strategic goals, so I need my vendors to align with me in my strategic goals so that I know where I'm going, making something a bit more than just me buying something. And if you compare those two, you will really see lots of agility here and lots of words that we are using in Agile software management, which I really like, since this source of this didn't came directly from the software development and especially not IT. Now let's see what are the risks here. When you talk about projects, and when you talk about the project managers, about no matter what kind of projects, pretty much they will all say to you that you constantly should and need to monitor your risk, because at the end those risks can become issues, and then you need somehow to be agile to overcome those issues and constraint. In my position now, where I'm a client who is searching for a vendor, I really went through this and to see, does my company have all this so that I can do in some way, let's say, proper vendor management, and it comes, do I have a support from executive management to do something like this? Do I have a communication plan? Communication plan can be simple table like we're going to use daily stand-up and so on, or something even more complex. Who are the escalation path? If something really goes wrong, what can I do? Have I recognized the risk? Or am I just going to start in a belief that I'm going to buy something and get something bad without any issues? Is there an impact of cultural differences? This is a kind of really interesting topic because most of the people do not think about it, but this is the really the major issue here. Do I really know what will I have to do to ensure that my vendor will do the work properly? This is pretty much always maintaining communication, giving them all the answers. And do I have governance program? Do I have a governance program at all? Do I have a governance program in IT? And do I have a governance program focusing on the guys who will do the work for me? And these are the risks from the side where I'm trying to buy a software. This is completely the same stuff, but let's see if I'm selling software. Do my clients have a support from executive management? If good, yes. If not, well. Do they have a communication plan? Because somehow they are always at the top and they are giving the money. So we are kind of in a bit lower position. Do they recognize what is the risk? Are they aware of cultural differences? Are we aware of the cultural differences of their own? Are they sure what we will require in order to do the job properly? And do they have outsourcing governance program? Do we have a governance program at all? And here are the things that can get really interesting. And we'll see later how that looks on one specific project, but all of those risks are occurring at some level, and sometimes they can become really big issues, but risks are there to be monitored and to be mitigated or avoided later. Let's talk about project. This is one really nice, simply defined project from the client, and yes, here is what we have, and we need this, and we needed that, and it should work, and that's pretty much it. It is really simply defined, so yeah. In general, there is a bunch of other things that are going on in creating a software project and delivering it, from environment, external services, functional requirements, business requirements, legacy code, and so on, so the things can get pretty interesting when you have something there, and especially that in lots of projects that I have been working, somehow it is expected that I provide, let's say, system or a business specification in the worst possible communication tool, that is the cold Word document, like here it is, and build it, and then you expect that someone will build the software based on that, which is kind of really interesting. But nevertheless, you have some definition, you have some cloud, what should be done, and then you start to do the project. Also, in all of those, someone has heard about the Agile, how Agile is cool, and we want to do something there. So we know that in the Agile we have some activities, we have some roles, we have some values, and we have some artifacts. And all of this somehow needs to be combined. Pretty much in this case, I have took stuff from Scrum and XP, maybe because they are most prominent. But the good things about the Agile and what I really like there is that you have a really large set of options that you can take, and all of those options are, let's say, loosely or simply defined, so you can use them and tailor them. So if we're going to go into the project, first what we have to do is play humans. I have been searching a lot to find, let's say, some checklist, what are the common mistakes that happens in communication between a client and the vendor, and pretty much these came up, which is kind of really interesting. You can sum all those up and say, yeah, it's a common communication problem, because all of these are communication. But there are pretty interesting stuff here. Of course, first the miscommunication. It can be language barriers, it can be whatever you want to do. Culture problems, really, really big problems that shape complete the way how the people are thinking and how the people are acting. Time zones doesn't seem to be a big problem, but when you have a stand-up at 4 o'clock and you want to go home and you're tired and someone asks you what you will do today, that doesn't kind of make sense. But when you have 2 stand-ups in the morning and in the evening, then you have a bit overhead. And when you have 3 time zones, then it's really kind of starting to messing up. Today, I have got completely one specific also point on this accepting mistake. Lots of speakers were saying about experimentation. And the question is, how can you experiment if you won't accept a mistake from someone? Because actually experimenting is making a mistake until you get what you really want to do. This is the, from my perspective, one of the biggest issue. And in my roles as a let's say team lead or the product owner or the project management, I'm really searching for something or someone that can be characterized as a mistake. So as soon as possible that I can, okay, we have a mistake, sorry, I have made a mistake, I have messed up this, and this, how can we solve it? Because this is, from my perspective, good for a couple of things. First, you're admitting mistake, and especially if you're on some higher level, which is pretty much good for a team. And the second of all, you are acknowledging that you are the human who makes mistakes and you will probably do them, and you give them, especially young people or the developers, or in that case, someone who also, you are allowing them to make a mistake. And this is something that really speeds up the communication, and especially in something that is called a project team. If you go to a theory of the teams, you know that you have how it goes, forming, norming, actually first goes storming. So you have those phases where the teams are getting a bit wild, and you want to get to the phase where the team really performs as soon as possible. And this is what you will do immediately by accepting mistake. There is a second thing here. If you go a bit through some, let's say, psychology stuff about why is this a problem, it is a problem because by default our brains are created to search for the fault. And of course, it's always someone else to blame there. So as soon as you get rid of it, you will really create a nice atmosphere to work. It is good to acknowledge error. At least the main thing and the main point of error should be good. We have an error now. What we can learn from it, what we can do, so it does not happen again. And then again, we have to have understanding from all of these perspectives about the time zones, about the cultures, about the way of behaving, and so on. Let's take a typical project. Pretty much all the projects that I have been working kind of have those components in some way. First of all, we have some client that wants something to be done. That client has some stakeholders which are pretty much a board. This board, let's say, can be interesting. Nevertheless, I just choose the word board. Those are the guys who pay for the project. Those guys can be departments head who are working in a company for 10 or 15 years. Those guys can be some entrepreneurship who are having $50 million and have invested in 50 million different startup projects. So these are the guys that actually at the end want to see something working and they want something to be delivered. pretty much they appoint someone. I have put here deliberately PM because project manager is not quite so good in the Agile, so it can be product manager. Nevertheless, there is a guy or a person or a girl who talks with the other, in this case, vendors who should provide the software. And to help him and support in all of the legacy code, systems, integration, wishes, enterprise architecture, security, and so on, we have a bunch of other things who are there to support, meaning not working on daily basis, but support. And since not all is so quite perfect and nicely defined, I have added this ghost who can be whatever you want. But this is the guy who pretty much causes problems and issues. So, bunch of stakeholders going on, entering and exiting the project. Let's see what we have here. We have a vendor. Pretty much there is a responsible person. There is, again, product manager or something like that. And we go something that is, let's say, team lead, in this case, who will be leading from this side, this team. And of course, we have a here ghost who can manifest himself in performance evaluation of those teams, who can manifest himself forcing some KPIs here, forcing some rules that can be or cannot be of a big help. Now here are the things getting really, really interesting. From my previous experience, I have been working here, and pretty much all of our projects were faced to American clients. Now, currently, I'm in Vienna, and all of my projects are worked by the guys from India. And this is kind of really interesting how this replicates itself in simple manners. But this is something that is called a project team, or at least let's call it project team. Nevertheless, guys who are working at the project. And if you're gonna go here and check this guy or this guy, this can be some junior who has just joined the company. He's not quite sure what he's working on. His skills are not that powerful. Let's say he's a bit of introvert, so his communication skills are also not so bad. And after all the planning and doing, he has a job to program something that has something to do with some of those guys. That can be implement logging in application that must comply with some security stuff that guys here have wrote. And when you consider this guy here, security guru, expert with 20 years of experience, bunch of certificates coming from a big city, for example, this guy here coming not so from the big city, and you need to connect them in order to fulfill all the requirements. The question is, does this sound easy? Of course that is not. And here, where we are coming to all the mistakes, troubles with the communication, with misunderstanding, and so on and so on. If you're going to talk about the agility, what I really like there is this focus on communication, and as soon as possible, someone should try to connect those guys on the same level and later check on them. In my experience, I really try to avoid going through step-by-steps and adding communication channels by going through a bunch of person, and I try directly to connect the people as soon as possible and start them talking. There are a couple of, let's say, tools that you can use here or tips that I have learned. If there are 2 or 3 countries, of course, try to meet the team as soon as possible, try to give them a workshop, try to meet them. And I just don't think meet them and get them to work together, meet them and take out them for lunch. Talk about the culture, talk about concerts, talk about whatever you need, just to get the feeling that the guys are there together in working something that should be goal at the end, and that is to deliver something good. So try to travel if that budget allows. If you can move the complete team for a week or 2, move it. If you cannot, then try to bring at least 2 persons there to communicate. As we have 2 sides somehow colliding there, somehow I have found out that our focus and our goal should be in creating something like this, where we really should all act as one team. When I was, let's say, on these position, I have really started to forbidding some words in this team, like they don't like us, they do that, they do that. No, They're not they're our team, and they work with us and we work with them. And if you're going to push them to make those boundaries, then you really are creating boundaries, and you are way out of this. And this should be your goal. And as far as I have noticed, there are like two main characters here that should do the goals, and it can be team lead from this side, it can be product manager from this side. Nevertheless, there is also one really interesting thing here, and that is in Agile you have roles. Those roles are not and should not be mapped one-to-one to the people, because really it's an Agile and team idea is to deliver. If this guy is going to do some role of a maybe team lead or even product owner, writing some user story, maybe someone else can help with writing test cases. Bunch of people have different kind of skills and they can help. So there isn't need to separate and create the bigger boundaries. The goal is to create this. Since pretty much always there is someone from the client side and someone from the vendor side who is main point of communication, they really need to get along and distribute all the information needed, from a vision to the requirements to everything else. It was really interesting when I was, let's say, on this side. We start working good. Do we have coding standards? No, they do not have coding standards. They cannot give them, so how we can work with them? They are like this. But when you take it from the other side, do they have coding standards? No, good. We have one. Can we use these coding standards? Why? Because we have used to them, and we like them, and if you do not have them, we can suggest those. And these kind of collaborative things really help us to get go and to really accelerate the project. Because if you're going to expect everything to get from the client nicely defined, most often that won't be the case. So why, from this side, as someone who do the work, let's use that opportunity and be the partners in creating one goal. So okay, we have this. We have configured our supporting tools for our development tools that we can do and use these coding standards. We like to use this. Do you use Agile? No. Okay, cool. We use it Agile in this way. So those are all opportunities that you can blend together in creating something that will at the end deliver the nice project. Something that I really like you to take off, and something that I really like to use in my project, in this case, this is a relatively simple, and it should be simple, mind map. It works for me as a reminder, because at some course of the project, I really go through all this and see, okay, costs are calculated, scope, is it good, not good? Do I have some problems here? Maybe have. Is an environment okay regarding this kind of stuff? Do I have vision, maybe mission, culture? Can that help? Do we have standards? If we can have them, that's good. If not, can we create them? If we're going to focus all of the development, have we covered all of these things? Can some potential problems rise from this stuff? And of course, we have a team. Are all guys in the team know what they should be doing? Is that really so? So this is something that I use, and somehow I really try to explain to all the team members in the project team that there are different kind of aspects of what we are doing. And then again, the main goal is to deliver the working software at the end. And there is also one interesting stuff here. It is actually, I have deliberately choose definition of done, because it isn't something that, let's say, easily can be written. I mean, you can have in some software a text box where it said, yeah, user story is done when this, and this. But then again, someone from the board does not kind of care for user stories. He has some other idea of definition of done, and all the roles or people in a project have their definition of done, and what we should be aware are definition of done of other people with whom we are working for, because the main goal again is to collaborate and communicate at the end. This is also something that I really do and use as a reminder or as a checklist. Have everyone understand what is going on, and does really everyone know what we mean by delivering of a project and getting it really done at the end. I I will be short. So this is also, let's say, from the book that I have read from the outsourcing topics, and they say there are like 3 key ingredients in successful projects that are outsourced. Pretty much those 3 ingredients can be found everywhere. First is partnership, and I will get back to the beginning of my presentation, where it's not a goal to go and buy something from someone, it's a really goal to be, let's say, on the partner level, on the same level, because our idea is to do the things together to get something done, something delivered. In order to have a partnership, we should build that on trust, and this is something that we should focus on. Trust is by admitting mistake, by admitting that someone has made a mistake, by learning from mistakes, and by doing that as soon as possible. What I really like in Agile is like this fail fast, fail safe. So let's try to do a bunch of things so we can fail at the beginning and not have later before. This failing is really, really important, because if you take it from the vendor side, when you create something and, for example, you want to deploy it on the environment of your client, really, really large amount issues just pops up, from the server version, Java versions, .NET versions, to the procedures, who can commit where, who can deploy it where, and how that goes. So these kind of things really arise as layer of complexity is added between client and the vendor. There is also here the third ingredient, which I kind of, let's say, summarize this, and that is collaboration, which kind of, let's say, it's illogical, but I really like this word specifically, because if you do some research on a theory of conflict or problem solving, there are a couple of levels how to solve the problems, and you have a forcing, when you really force your solution on someone without asking any questions. You can have withdrawing, when you just step away, okay, do whatever you want, I don't care. There is also something called compromise, which is maybe one of the worst kinds, for a very simple reason, because compromise, I'm going to lose something, you're going to lose something, and we will be on the same level. And why this one is the best? Because this forces us to go together to a level higher. And there is also one of the Einsteins, like, in order to solve the problem, we must be on the higher level of awareness that created the problem. So actually we need to collaborate and find something completely else in order to solve our problems. And all of this kind of looks really, really simple, but in general it isn't, because we have found that there are lots of interesting things coming on and lots of interesting problems. When we are using all the Agile tools that there are possible, there is a really one interesting word in that in order to implement Agile, and that is kind of a discipline. And what we need is really discipline, is going around and evaluating, are we really combining these 3 keys to really have successful project? Is it really that we are acting as a partners, or we are acting as a guys who sell a software? Are we really trust them, or we can challenge them, or we will just do whatever they say? Are we going to ask and try to add to their business cause and to their strategic values, or are we going to just sit and wait for the questions to arise and at the end problems? So this is kind of required, and one of the ways that you can really do it is by being disciplined and constantly going around and checking are all of 3 keys to success are there. And I think that's pretty much it, and I will take you for your time. Okay. Does anyone have a question? Yes, is there any questions? Please. If you're a vendor and applying Agile, okay, then I must be here, no, I'm here as a client, and there is a vendor applying.
Here is the vendor applying Agile methodology, and you have like a big customer following, let's say, traditional approach. And they really want to do it in that planning or waterfall methodology way. So would you suggest any kind of mixing these two, let's say, methodologies, or however you call it?
Well, if I'm, let's say, a really boring old school client who forced this waterfall method, and there are a bunch of really nice agilists there, I think that agility should be, in this case, pushed from the vendor side in order to explaining what is good in the agile. But nevertheless, that will be pushed from this side. But how I try to resolve this kind of conflict is searching something that I called endpoints, and that is what you need in a waterfall, and that is we need a maybe milestone, toll gate, or whatever, and then good, you will get the milestone, toll gate. But can I in between those use agile? Can I use my user stories and pretty much it? Because that makes us efficient and so on and so on. And that is somehow collaborative when you can get to the end. And that is kind of approach that I have, let's say, took so far in my project, and pretty much it worked. Because toll gates are months, years, or whatever, and in between you should be able to somehow self-organize yourself. But if they are not agile, you're agile, that somehow needs to come from this side. Does this answering your question? Thanks. Yes, penalties in Agile. That was a really big topic on my last project, because our clients, by our vision, failed to deliver something, and I just want to impose something there regarding the penalties and so on. Then we have started having a chat with the governance part and legal stuff and so on, and at the end, things are getting really, really complex. And if we go to the slide where we wanted, this is stuck. I'm just gonna quickly go to the slide with to remove those guys. We don't need that. This kinds of really fix our goal to delivering business value as soon as possible, and especially in Agile, if you're gonna go look to sprint 1, deliver something, that can really, let's say, lower risk of failing and make visibility a bit clearer, so we can stop working with the vendor or with the client if you really do not like. Maybe avoiding some penalties in a big project. This is how I have discussed it with my people, and of course there are a bunch of lawyers that really start to getting things really, really complicated on a level that I do not understand, we do not understand terminology and so on. So it's easy for us to, let's say, on a project of 1 million, okay, let's test this 10 cases to see can we get delivered. Let's have 3 guys working for a month or 2 or 3 to see does this work, and then scale it a bit larger than to hire 100 people and then see after half year that nothing is working. That's the kind of approach that we are taking. Is this somehow answering your question?
How many clients accept that?
Yeah, that's also something pretty much, let's say, to discuss with the clients, their own. But after a couple of articles regarding that legal stuff, pretty much how the world is going pretty fast, people are somehow getting away from this legal part. And in the last 2 projects, there weren't any specification about the penalties and so on and so on. But we have focused on delivery and communication, so we kind of overcome those, from my experience so far. Good. Okay. Yes.
How about fixed price in the contract? There is constant discussion about fixed price contracting with Agile.
Okay.
What are your experiences?
I have stopped discussing fixed price. I only do time and material. No. No, there was really interesting things. If you only focus on code, and let's say code, who will judge how code is good? Will you hire a third party to do the code review? Will you check the unit test coverage? who will sign off that, and that again adds a layer of complexity and kind of preventing us of focusing on the business and creating value. My experience in time and materials, as far as I have noticed, vendors who are selling a software project are pretty much used to that.
When it comes to bidding, when it comes to RFPs, regardless if it's public authority or if it's private company, when they publish an RFP, how do you bid? How do you estimate? Because we are having business tokens. We will be creating
estimating in Agile.
Yeah, because still I'm not talking about business in the US or somewhere else. I'm talking about business here in Bosnia. We are local people, and we need to understand this. This paradigm of having everything estimated upfront is still there, and I really have my doubts that it will be dismissed anytime soon. So I'm looking for experiences how to avoid this.
Should we talk a lot later on this?
Sure.
Okay, just one. What I have tried to do in like 2 of my projects, were sort of, is to create, let's say, a release roadmap with this, and this. But what we really try to do is like must have, should have, and try to iteratively get rid of the things that we cannot manage.
I have 2 answers. At the beginning of the project, it doesn't matter if you go with a waterfall or with an agile approach afterwards. So if you don't know anything and you don't have the position that you learned already anything, you could take any classical estimation method. There are many out there, just use one. And the second answer is there are actually legal constructs that allow flexible scope.
Well, here now in Bosnia they are just about to be implemented. I know that our public purchasing agency is actually dealing with these kind of things as we speak. The new law has been appointed, but just a few months ago this was legally impossible for us.
Yeah, you should also
it is legally impossible with classical contracting.
Sorry?
It's legally possible with classical contracting and flexible scope, so this is the answer.
For us here it was really difficult.
Oh, okay. Maybe
for us it was really difficult.
Government contracting over here had a different set of rules, so
yeah.
Doing government jobs.
Well, that's the same in Switzerland or in Germany or wherever you go.
Yeah, it's the same in the US, for example.
Okay, we have had just one question here, so I would like to answer that. Maybe someone. Yes, please.
Mainly about the requirements and handling the requirements. Well, I also have some experience in both traditional and agile, but handling requirements is totally different. Having waterfall and having the agile, of course. And if you don't define your requirements in waterfall, well, I mean, later on you can charge for change request or something. But it seems to me that in agile it's a totally different approach. Like you don't commit, but you can communicate your requirements. I mean, later on, you can be late with the requirements, you don't get them on time, stuff like that. So how do you handle actual requirements in Agile?
Actually, not. That's, let's say, completely different topic. But let me get back to this, where I have a client and I'm the vendor. Pretty much requirements that I go are never fully defined, which is, yes. Nevertheless, I mean, it's quite good. I don't see problem in that, because I'm going to try to find those requirements. What can I start immediately working on? Maybe it will be application of file processing. I can really start writing file processing code while the requirement comes. But what I really like here from the client side, when I give pull requirements, for me it's really perfect collaboration when I have a vendor who immediately challenges my requirements. So this is not clear, this is not clear, this is not clear. And then you're stuck, ooh, we have no idea what to do with that. And then you are really going into this collaborative approach where those guys are thinking and helping you resolve the things that you couldn't resolve. So the key word here is a challenge. Immediately from this side, whatever I provide them, in my case, to the vendor, I want that immediately to be challenged. Yes, that's why you. Yes, I know. That's why you need to build all of this green project team where it is here, and you need to push that. You cannot expect everything to get. You need to push up here. You have to fight back. You have to fight that back. I mean, and you will never be at the end of that, but there are tools and ways, and yes. Good.
No, thank you.
Thanks.
Igor, this is small token of appreciation for you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very
I'm
much.
gonna